This is episode number 2 with Jamie Harris, Ultraman Florida. Welcome to the pursuit of the perfect race. My name is Terry Wilson, and with each episode I bring athletes to you that share their experiences at races in order for you to find your perfect race. We will hear stories from athletes of all ages, abilities, and races of all distances. So regardless of where you fit in, there's something in it for you. Thanks for spending some time with me today. Now let the pursuit begin. Hello everyone, and welcome to the first real episode of the Pursuit of the Perfect Race. Today I had the pleasure of talking with Jamie Harris, who placed first in the women's division at Ultraman Florida this year. Jamie has completed the race twice now and is an avid triathlete. Thank you for joining me on the show today, Jamie. So when is this race and what are the distances of the race? I know it takes place over a weekend, so just what does it actually entail?
Just this past weekend, the 16th, 17th, and 18th. So Ultraman, it consists of a 6.2 mile swim on day one and immediately followed by about a 91 mile bike. And then on day 2, it's 171 miles. And then on day 3, it's a 52.4 mile run.
Wow.
The total bike distance over the 2 days is 263 miles.
Some weird odd number they just decided to throw out there.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sitting here thinking, why don't they just make it like a triple Ironman? But it's their own distance.
Yeah.
So is it broken down into age groups?
Yeah, they go by 10-year age group. And Ultraman is more of a self-supported race. So, when you think about triathlon, most of the time, you think about the races that you go to and they have, water stops and things like that. With this particular race, you're required to bring your own crew.
Okay.
The minimum crew number is 2, so and the maximum number is 4. So you need to bring your own crew, and they're the ones who follow you along the course, provide you with your nutrition and things like that.
So there's really no
the race
aid
itself.
Stations then.
Right.
Wow.
Yeah, your crew gives you all your support and nutrition and stops and things like that.
So it's like you have your own SAG support during the whole bike then.
Yeah, and during the swim, you're required to have somebody kayak with you during the swim, during the whole thing. So this year I had 4 crew members.
Okay.
I also did this race last year.
Oh, really?
As well. I did, yeah.
How was it this year compared to last year?
This year was phenomenal. Last year, I felt like I definitely had a lot more struggles. And I guess, maybe this year I knew a little bit better what to expect. But this year, just everything came together perfectly.
What all went well for you this year?
Just managing my nutrition.
What do you use for nutrition?
I mostly use F2C, actually.
Really?
I've been using F2C for the last couple of years since my training partner, and teammate introduced it to me. And, I've tried out all kinds of different products and nothing was really working for me. And so she had suggested it, and so I started using that, and it's made a huge difference. Most of what I did during the swim was just one of their products, Hydra, and their Glyco. And then I also took some gels on the swim, which is a different product, but and then on the bike, I mainly use F2C as well, and I ate some solid food.
So were you like on a timed interval of your nutrition? You got to hit so many calories per every 20, 30 minutes? Or what was that like? Yeah,
so during the swim portion, I set my watch to every 15 minutes, and I had it alert me at 15 minutes, and it's set to beep and vibrate, and then my kayaker would throw me my bottle, and every 15 minutes I drank, and then every 30 minutes I had a gel.
Okay. So how long did the swim take you?
This year it took me 3:01.
3 hours
36.
and 1 minute for a swim.
Yeah. And the conditions this year in the water were great. It was a little on the warm side, and I was concerned that it was going to be colder because it's been cold.
Right.
Up until the last couple of weeks, and it warmed up.
Now, whenever you got to the race, did you have a certain place that you had to go and check in your bike? I heard a rumor where you had to actually have 2 bikes. So
you have the option of having a second bike should you need it. Before the race starts, you're required to go get a bike inspection. So if you were going to use a second bike, you would need to have it inspected. But the only time you can actually use a backup bike is if something fails on your main bike that you are using, and then you have to get permission, to be able to use the backup bike. And then should you need to use the backup bike, you're done. You can't use your main bike again. So you can't like swap back and forth.
Right. You can't. That makes sense. Because was there much elevation gain on the bike?
Yeah, there's a little over 4,000 feet. Yeah, I don't know the exact elevation, but I want to say there's like 4,400 feet of climbing.
It's not too bad. So what kind of bike did you use?
Same bike that I've been riding for the last 7 years. I ride a Triad SP.
Okay. Did you have certain wheels that you used for it?
I have a set of Zips. The other nutrition product I used was Honey Stinger.
Oh, okay.
I like them a lot, actually.
So during the race, were you trying to hit a certain power number on your bike?
No, I don't use power. And no, I just pretty much go by RPE.
Really?
Yeah. I didn't pay any attention to heart rate. And I actually didn't have my watch set the way I like to have it set for some reason. And I couldn't see the total time. And maybe it was the total distance too. On day one, it wasn't showing me the time, and it wasn't showing me the distance, but it was lapping every 5 miles. So it was telling me what number I had done. So then I could do the math and figure out where I was on the course. And I was pretty familiar with day one course anyway.
So what kind of computer did you have?
I just used my Garmin.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So did you use an aero helmet for the race?
I used my aero helmet on day one, and I used a regular helmet on day two.
Why was that?
Well, because of the length of the bike on day two, and I knew that it was going to get hot, it's not as easy to cool down in my aero helmet. So I knew that it'd be easier for cooling purposes to use the regular helmet.
Gotcha. So whenever you're training up for this, how was that? I mean, going into training for something that takes 3 days to complete, that had to be really hard to train for.
Yeah, there was, the overall training actually isn't all that bad. Like during the week, I mostly do one workout a day, most days, and then the weekends are pretty long. And, obviously as I get closer to the race, they get longer and longer. That's probably the most difficult is as it gets closer, my weekends just kind of disappear and I don't really have a weekend.
Right. I mean,
because it's all training.
And weren't you the first place finisher in the female division?
Yes.
Wow. So how close was the second person or second female behind you?
Day one, the second place female was fairly close. I can't remember how many minutes, maybe 10 or so minutes behind me. And she actually had a faster bike split on day one.
But then on day two, is that where you caught her?
Yeah. And overall, I don't think, I'm not sure how much faster I was on day two compared to the second female finisher, but day three was a real good day for me.
And that was just the run?
Yes.
How was the run? Was it a hilly course?
Yeah. Day three it starts in Claremont.
Okay.
And it ends in Windermere. I would say the 3/4 of that run is hills.
Really?
And yeah. And part of it goes on the clay roads out in Claremont, yeah. And there's no shade and it gets hot. And that was one of my concerns, and I don't necessarily I can handle heat to a certain point, but I do tend to struggle a little bit more in the heat, and I know that. So I wanted to get out ahead and try to get through as much of that as I could before it got too hot.
So what was your hydration plan for the run?
My plan was to try to get about a bottle in per hour, but maybe not quite, because I can't tolerate quite that much during a run. About every 4.5 minutes, I would take a sip, of my nutrition. and I was taking salt tabs about every 45 minutes, and I was taking gels every 3 miles,
So
until I couldn't do that anymore.
was your crew still there supporting you on the run the whole way?
Yeah, and as it got hotter, they started, offering me cooling things like, I didn't wear a shirt for a really long time, and I just ran in my sports bra until it got hot, and then I brought a couple of tank tops or running singlets for them to soak in ice water, and then I started putting those on and rotating those, and I brought a couple of visors and a hat so that we could rotate those through the ice water. Also, we brought towels or washcloths to keep those in ice water, and then every few minutes they just kept rotating them out.
Wow. So now, how was it like on the run? I mean, after riding and swimming so far, I would imagine that your legs are pretty much toast by the time you even get to the run.
I would say I felt really good. And I remember last year actually feeling more sore at the start of day 3 than I did this year. This year, my legs felt pretty fresh, and I probably started out on the run actually maybe a little too fast.
So did you make any mistakes on the run part?
I would say no.
Really?
Yeah. Other than the possibility of maybe starting out too fast, I would say no.
And did you have any flats or anything on the bike?
No.
Wow.
No, my bike held up well. And
so, how much did it cost to actually do this race?
I don't know the total. I mean, there's the entry fee, of course. I have not kept track of how much I've spent for all of the various components and things that go into it. It's a significant amount.
Because, I mean, I've done an Ironman, and I can only imagine doing something of this caliber where you have to have a crew out there, the hotel for the few days.
Mm-hmm.
It's a bigger ordeal. So how was the banquet afterwards? Was it fun?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, there's a couple of different events that they have. They hold an athlete briefing and a get together, and before the race, and then they have the banquet afterwards, and it's a really great time. It's getting to know some really phenomenal athletes and their crews, and good to meet new friends and people from different places, and it's definitely a community of people, and that's just one thing that I really like about it. I feel like those are people that understand me and what I'm doing, and there's some people who I talk to who don't really understand what this race is and why I'm doing it or anything, and they think boy, it must be crazy. But those people really get it. They understand, and and it's a small, close-knit group of people, I think. So
why do you do
and
it?
There's just I'm not even really sure that I can put it into words. It's something that maybe since before I started on this journey in 2009. I had been a swimmer when I was younger, and then I got into cycling probably about 2005 or 2006. And then through that I met, people who were triathletes and doing that kind of thing. And running was never, ever my thing. I had to learn how to run as an adult. But
really?
Yeah. So before I even went out running, I started reading books and magazines about running and ultra running. And I don't even know why I started reading ultra running books before I started running, but that was just something that I was drawn to. And I thought, one day, like, I'm going to be that person who goes out and runs 50 miles or 100 miles or, multiple 100 miles or whatever it is. And so that's kind of what started the journey.
Now, was it after last year's not so great race that you wanted to do it again? But
I wanted to do it better, and I knew I was capable of doing it better. And I had an injury last year, or well, not last year, but in 2016, 6 weeks before Ironman Chattanooga, I fell on a training run and fractured my tibial plateau. It was a significant injury, and it set me back, a few months. And so last year, before this race, I didn't start running until December. So then this past year, I mostly rested. I had anticipated that I would just be all gung ho after Ultraman 2017, and I had a lot of goals that I wanted to do, particular races and things, and my body just wasn't ready for that. So, and then I was registered for Ironman Chattanooga again because I really wanted to do that race. And when I decided to do Ultraman Florida this year, I looked at the training schedule with my coach, and we decided that Florida was really a better fit.
Right.
As far as, in the training cycle. I transferred to Ironman Florida this year, and I did it in 2017 in November.
Right.
So I didn't have a whole lot of break. We kind of trained up for Ironman Florida, and then as soon as we were done with Ironman Florida, we, ramped up the training for this. I had a really good solid foundation this year, which was a whole lot different than last year.
Right. So who's your coach?
Chuck Kemeny.
Really?
He happens to be the race director for Ultraman Florida.
Really?
He's a life sport coach.
So he definitely knows the ins and outs of the entire race and how to set things up.
Oh yeah, and he's the record holder. So.
Really?
Yeah. So I crewed for him in 2014.
Okay.
He was putting together a crew, and I volunteered. And I actually hadn't heard of Ultraman before. He was looking for some help for his crew.
Right.
I just knew he was this like crazy guy who, I guess it was a little while before that, but kind of knew that he was into doing some doubles and stuff like that. And, he was really inspiring. And then I got to know him, and he's been my coach actually since 2013.
Wow. That's a long time.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I'm sure he was proud of you whenever he saw you coming across the finish line first this year.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And I wanted to make him proud, for sure. This year I finished 6th overall.
Okay.
There were definitely guys who came in well before I did, on day 1 and day 2 and obviously day 3, but overall I finished 6th. I think I want to say there were 35 finishers. I believe 39 started.
Wow. That's got to be hard. I mean, but honestly, if you look at the percentage, that's about normal.
Yeah.
So what was the hardest part of the training going into the race?
Hardest part of the training, probably the longer bike days. Like I said earlier, it had been a little bit cold this winter, and so I normally like to ride outside.
Right.
And I ended up this year spending a ton of time on my trainer. And, and some days it works out really well. It doesn't get to me mentally. I mean, 4 or 5 hours is fine. But when you start talking about creeping into 7 hours on the trainer, and there's certainly people who have done a lot more than that. But for me, that was probably the hardest.
Was that one of the hardest things to actually mentally prepare yourself for, getting up in the morning saying, okay, I'm going to get on here and I'm not going to get off until after 1 or 2 in the afternoon? I mean, doing an Ironman, you do 5 and 6 hours pretty easy, but 7 and 8, oh my gosh, that's a long time just to be sitting there.
It is.
Just sit there.
Yeah. Yeah. And when you don't have that group of people that you're riding outdoors with, and, and I would put out messages, and I wasn't as good about putting it out like early in advance, as I have been in the past. I'd put out the word like, does anyone want to go for, a ride with me? And, you can ride as long as you want or as short as you want. I have 8 hours to do. Any takers, and I would not get a lot of takers. And so that was tough. There were a few weeks that I did have some people to ride with for a few hours. So that was good.
So when did you actually start riding outside this year?
Definitely sometime in January. Because I remember doing Ironman Florida, and then I remember saying a few weeks ago, I said, this is the first time I've ridden outside since Ironman Florida. And so I think I rode outside 2 or 3 times before this event. Yeah, there were days that were not pretty on the trainer, I can tell you that.
Not pretty?
Not pretty. Yeah.
So I'm assuming you went
It
through a
just,
lot of TV shows on Netflix just by being on the trainer.
yeah. You know what? I don't watch any television at all. I only listen to music on the trainer.
Really?
Yeah.
So you're like completely hardcore with that because
Yeah.
almost everybody just watches Netflix or.
No, and they actually weren't a lot of aerobic rides. So, it'd be one thing if I was just sitting there, spinning on the trainer, for a few hours. I might be able to get away with that, like just having something to watch. When I'm having to do specific intervals or that kind of thing and work at an intensity level that's, past aerobic, like I can't do that. I have to turn on the music and really focus on what I'm doing.
Right. Were you aiming for a certain cadence during the bike rides during the race?
No.
Really? Okay.
No.
Was there like a race strategy that you had in mind going into it that you talked with Chuck with?
Not specifically. It was more to, focus on me and my own race, not let anybody else get inside my head. And that's what I did.
Just do the best you can do and let everything
Yeah.
else fall apart if it does, but you're only focused on you?
Yeah.
Wow. So I know you're on Big Sexy Racing. Did anybody, I think Lori, didn't she come down there?
Yeah. So I had 4 crew members and Lori Abbey was one of them. Yeah, she's my best friend and training partner, and she trained a whole lot with me last year leading up to Ultraman, and she trained with me this year. She did most of my long runs with me on the weekends.
Really? What was the longest run you did?
Super grateful. I did a 50K in December. It's actually a little ultra they have in Tallahassee the beginning of December, one of the first couple weekends. They have a 50 miler and a 50K. And I did that just as a training run. But I pushed the pace a little bit. And I ran several 26 miles, or I shouldn't say several, but a few 26 milers, 24 milers, 22 milers in preparation.
And those were just training runs that you trained through?
Yeah. Those were just part of a long weekend.
Would that be like on Sunday after the long bike ride on the day before?
Yeah. Yeah. And actually those got easier and easier and easier as they went. And I actually kind of looked forward to the runs. And, I would get up early and there were sometimes, there was one day I ran 26 miles and I left my house at 5:30 in the morning. Yeah.
So with the swim, did you build up to the full 6.2 miles or did you just hover around the 5-mile mark with the swimming in the pool? Or how did that go?
I forget what I topped out at. I think it was 9,000 or so. It was just over 9,000.
Wow. I think that would take me like forever. Man. I mean, would you like pack a lunch for that or pack like your normal nutrition that you were going to use during the race for that?
Yeah, I would just pack my normal nutrition that I would do for the race. And, and stop like after every 1,000 and drink.
That's quite an achievement. I can't imagine doing all of that. So what's next?
I have no idea.
Really?
I am. I'm gonna go to Haines. I'm gonna go to Haines City for fun.
Right. Are you racing for fun?
I am. I'm gonna race for fun.
Gosh.
Although anytime I race, I want to be competitive, but I need to keep in mind, where I'm at, that I'm still recovering. So we'll see.
So did you have some boots that you used on the nights that you, like after you got done, did you have like some Normatec boots that you hopped in to help with recovery?
Lori lets me borrow her Normatec boots.
Yeah.
Yeah, and those are so awesome. I wish I owned a pair of my own.
Man.
It's funny how you get to a point where you finish one day of training and you think you're going to wake up and you're just going to feel trashed, and I mean, because your legs are hurting and then you wake up in the morning and all the soreness is gone. And it's like, how did that even happen? Like, how did sleeping through the night take care of all that
And you
soreness
don't have
and
like a
fatigue?
certain shake that you take the night before. It's just whatever you're normally eating.
Yeah. No, I don't use anything specific for recovery. And Chuck would tell me I need to.
Oh man.
But I like to eat my nutrition.
So are you going to do an ultra marathon later this year?
I have not considered what my next A race would be. I may do a sprint triathlon. I forgot about that. That's right before, a couple weeks before Haines City, and I'll do that for fun. But I'll have to take a little bit of time to decide what's next.
Thank you so much for sharing everything. I appreciate it. How was the finish line?
The finish line is awesome. I don't know, between the race director and the assistant race director and all the volunteers that are out on the course and at the finish line are just super amazing. And actually, one of the things that's really special about the race is Steve King. He is the official announcer for the race, and he makes you feel like a rock star. He's out on the course. He'll go by, he picks certain spots to go to, and he's there announcing, your time and, and little tidbits about the race, and you feel like a pro, So that's one of the things that's really special about the race. And when you come through the finish line, he makes you feel, special again, and so that part's really cool.
I mean, it's such a small knit community of people that even do these races. Because there's Ultraman Florida, then there's one in Canada, I believe, then there's one in Hawaii. That's the only three I'm aware of. Is there any more?
There's actually a different branded race, I believe, in Mexico, and I forget, it's the 520, the 515. It's in kilometers. I forget. And there was an Ultraman Texas for a couple of years. I think they did it for 2 years in a row, as far as I'm aware. And then it got canceled. So right now there's just Ultraman World Championships in Hawaii and then Canada.
So are you gonna go to Hawaii to compete in that then?
I would love to, but I need to think about it, and it's a whole another level of expenses, and so far I have not gotten on an airplane to do any race. I've chosen all the races that I've done so far since I started triathlon based on location and really like how much they are, and I've tried to keep my expenses to a minimum, and I've sort of gone out of my comfort zone the last couple of years, for travel and things like that, for expenses. So yeah, that I really hadn't considered that an option for myself, going somewhere else, like on an airplane, to take on that expense. So we'll see. I would love to.
So I'm sure you qualified, right?
Yes.
What does it take to actually qualify for that? Is there like a slot allocation kind of like Kona, or is it a little bit different scenario for that?
I believe if I think I'm saying this right, but if you finish, if you're the top finisher, male and female, I think you automatically get an invitation. But if once you do finish Ultraman, you can apply to go to the World Championship. So.
Oh wow.
And that, it's all application, based. And so you have to be selected.
Sounds like it would be a different level, because then you have to not only just bring you, but all of your bike stuff, and then you have to bring 4 people to help you crew.
Yeah. When it's just a 3.5 hour drive for me to go to Orlando because I live in Tallahassee. But, I look around at the people who come from other countries and or other, other states. And I think, how do they do this? Like, if they're close enough, they drive. But if you came from another country and you got on an airplane, there's a lot more things to think about, I think, and have to worry about, the details once you arrive at the destination, because you certainly can't pack everything that you need ahead of time, and you might not be able to take everything back with you.
Wow.
And do you really want to bring 2 bikes with you?
Yeah, that's the question there. Man.
And some people, don't. I was thinking about this, as far as like the language barrier. Like, you go to a different country to race, and some people don't speak, English well. They may understand it better. I think one of the requirements is that you bring somebody who on your crew that can, speak and read English and that kind of thing. But so the language barrier is a factor, and just maybe, how things work in a different country, as far as transportation or,
Well, I mean, I don't know how it would work if you bring your crew from another country as well, people that you know, and then do they have to have an American driver's license to rent a car?
Right.
I mean, that's just thinking about that. I mean,
right.
I don't know how that would work.
Right.
I really appreciate your time, Jamie. That's all I have, and I really appreciate you sharing your experience with me. That was pretty awesome.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad I got to do this. Thanks for having me.
Wow, what an amazing story Jamie had for us. I'm glad you hung around with us today. I hope you're able to have an inside look at what it is like to train and complete Ultraman Florida. Maybe now that you've heard the story, you'll want to do it yourself, but if you're like me, I'd rather keep my races just a little bit shorter. If you learned something from today's episode, though, I'd like to hear from you. Either leave me a review on iTunes or even email me. If you'd like to share your story with me, send me an email at perfectracepodcast@gmail.com.